I never thought a piece of paper could make my hands shake. But there I was, standing in my kitchen on a random Tuesday morning, staring at a court summons with my name on it. Jessica, my ex-girlfriend, was suing me for $15,000. The accusations were insane: fraud, emotional abuse, unpaid debts. None of it was true. Every word was a lie designed to destroy me. I remembered her final text after our breakup: "You will regret leaving me." At the time, I thought it was just angry talk. I was wrong. She meant every word. I had no idea that her plan to destroy me would become her own downfall. Before we dive into this story, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. If you are enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will want to stick around to see how a courtroom became the stage for the most satisfying justice I have ever witnessed. Let me take you back 3 years. I met Jessica at a company networking event in Denver. I was working in software development, and she was a marketing coordinator for a startup downtown. She walked into that conference room wearing a navy blue dress, her confidence filling the space before she even spoke. We got to talking during the coffee break. She was charming, funny, and knew exactly how to make me feel like the most interesting person in the room. Within 2 weeks, we were dating. The first 6 months were great. Jessica was thoughtful and attentive. She would surprise me with lunch at work, remember little details I mentioned in passing, and always seemed genuinely interested in my day. I thought I had found someone special. My friends liked her. My family liked her. Everything seemed perfect. But around the 6-month mark, things started to shift. It began with small things. Jessica wanted to know where I was at all times. She would text me constantly throughout the day, getting upset if I did not respond within minutes. She started asking to see my phone, claiming she just wanted to make sure I was not hiding anything. When I hesitated, she would get emotional, saying I clearly did not trust her or love her enough. She wanted access to my bank accounts to prove we were serious. I refused. That was when the pattern really started. Jessica began asking to borrow money. It was always for something urgent. Her car needed repairs. She had unexpected medical bills. Her credit card payment was due and she was short. The amounts ranged from $50 to $200 at a time. She would promise to pay me back, but she never did. I did not push it because I thought I was helping my girlfriend through tough times. I loved her, and that is what you do for someone you love, right? I was wrong. After a year together, Jessica suggested we move in together. She said it would save us both money and help us build a stronger relationship. She found a nice 2-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood. The rent was $1,300 a month. We both signed the lease, agreeing to split everything 50-50. That agreement lasted exactly 1 month. Living together revealed everything I had been too blind to see. Jessica contributed almost nothing financially. There was always an excuse. She had been temporarily laid off from her job. She had unexpected expenses. She had debt she was trying to pay down. Meanwhile, I was covering 90% of the rent, all the utilities, and most of the groceries. She would come home with shopping bags full of expensive clothes and makeup, but claimed she had no money for rent. Every time I brought it up, she would turn it around on me. She would say I was being cheap, that a real man would not keep score, that I was making her feel worthless and unloved. She would cry and accuse me of not understanding how hard things were for her. I started to feel guilty for even mentioning money. I was working overtime to cover our expenses while she lived like we were wealthy. My savings account was draining. I was exhausted. My friends started to notice. Marcus, my best friend since college, pulled me aside one night. We were at a bar watching a game, and he looked at me seriously. "Paul, she is using you, man. Everyone can see it except you." I defended her at first, but deep down I knew he was right. I just did not want to admit I had been played. The breaking point came about a month before I finally ended things. Jessica told me she had lost her job and needed my help more than ever. I felt terrible for her and promised to support her through it. 2 weeks later, I ran into her coworker at a coffee shop. We chatted and she mentioned how stressed Jessica had been at work lately with the new project deadlines. I felt my stomach drop. Jessica had not lost her job. She was still working full-time, earning a steady paycheck and lying to my face about it. That night I confronted her. At first she denied everything, then she admitted it but blamed me. She said I made her feel so insecure about money that she felt like she had to lie. She said if I was a better partner, she would not have to hide things from me. The manipulation was so clear now that I could not unsee it. I told her I was done. I would move out in 30 days as required by the lease. Jessica went through every stage of manipulation. She cried and begged me to stay. She promised to change, to contribute more, to be better. When that did not work, she got angry. She screamed that I was abandoning her, that I never really loved her, that I was just like every other man who had hurt her. Finally, she got cold and calculated. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You will regret this. I will make sure you pay for everything you have done to me." I thought it was just the anger talking. I thought she would cool off and we would both move on. I found a small studio apartment across town, packed my things, and left. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I was free, or so I thought. 3 months passed. I was rebuilding my life, focusing on work, reconnecting with friends I had neglected during the relationship. I was finally starting to feel normal again. Then on that Tuesday morning, the summons arrived. I stood in my kitchen reading the legal document over and over, trying to make sense of it. Jessica was suing me for $15,000. She claimed I had defrauded her by promising financial support and then abandoning her, leaving her in financial ruin. She claimed I had emotionally abused her, causing her severe psychological distress that required therapy, and she was seeking compensation for her treatment. She also claimed I had borrowed money from her during our relationship and never paid it back. Every single word was a lie. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called her. It went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. Then a text came through. "I warned you. See you in court." Panic set in. I had no idea what to do. I had never been sued before. I had never even been to court except for a speeding ticket years ago. I spent the entire day in a fog at work, unable to concentrate. That evening I started researching lawyers. I needed help, and I needed it fast. I found an attorney named David Huang, who specialized in civil litigation. His reviews were solid, and he offered a free consultation. I called his office first thing the next morning and managed to get an appointment for later that week. Those few days felt like an eternity. When I finally sat down in David's office, I told him everything. The relationship, the money, the manipulation, the breakup, the threats. He listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "This is a classic case of financial abuse retaliation. She is trying to punish you for leaving. But here is the good news. If what you are telling me is true, we can prove it. Do you have any documentation, bank statements, text messages, emails, anything?" I nodded. "I am an organized person by nature. I keep records of everything. I had bank statements going back years. I had saved text messages, including the ones where Jessica asked to borrow money. I had emails from our landlord. I even had the lease agreement." David's face lit up. "This is better than I thought. She basically documented her own lies. Let me see everything you have." Over the next week, I gathered every piece of evidence I could find. Bank statements clearly showed I had been paying 90% of our shared expenses. Text messages showed Jessica asking to borrow money repeatedly, always promising to pay me back but never mentioning repayment after the initial request. The lease agreement showed I was the primary tenant and had been making the payments. I even had the threatening messages she sent after the breakup. David reviewed everything and smiled. "Paul, she has made a huge mistake. Not only are her claims false, but we can prove they are false. We are going to fight this, and we are going to win." The discovery phase began. This is the part of a lawsuit where both sides exchange information and evidence. What we discovered during this phase was shocking. Jessica had hired a private investigator to follow me after the breakup, trying to find dirt on me. She had created fake diary entries, claiming I had controlled and abused her during the relationship. But the diary entries had timestamps that did not match actual events. For example, she wrote about me controlling her on dates, when I could prove I was out of town for work. Even more damning, Jessica had submitted receipts for psychological therapy, claiming my abuse had forced her to seek treatment. David had those receipts examined. They were dated 6 months before Jessica and I even met. She was trying to pass off pre-existing therapy costs as damages from our relationship. David looked at me across his desk and said, "Paul, she is committing fraud." This could backfire on her very badly. I also reached out to our old landlord. He was happy to provide written confirmation of our payment history. According to his records, I had paid 90% of the rent during our entire tenancy. Jessica had been late on her portion multiple times, and I had covered for her. I contacted mutual friends and asked if any of them would be willing to testify about what they witnessed during our relationship. Marcus immediately agreed. So did another friend, Tyler, who had seen Jessica manipulate me firsthand. Even more surprising, a woman named Lauren, who had worked with Jessica, reached out to me. She had heard about the lawsuit through mutual connections and wanted to help. She told me Jessica had once bragged to her about having a plan to get money from me if things did not work out between us. David was building an airtight case. But despite the evidence, I was falling apart emotionally. The stress was overwhelming. I could not sleep. I could not eat. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, thinking it was more bad news. Jessica had started posting vague messages on social media about toxic exes and financial abusers. She never used my name, but people in our social circle knew who she was talking about. Some people started avoiding me, unsure of what to believe. Others reached out to offer support, but the damage to my reputation was happening in real time. My boss called me into his office one afternoon. He had heard about the lawsuit through the grapevine. I was terrified I was about to lose my job. Instead, he told me he believed me and that the company would support me through this. I nearly broke down in relief. Marcus checked in on me almost daily. "Truth will come out, brother. Hang in there." David was equally confident. "When we present our evidence, the judge will see through her lies. Just stay strong." But staying strong felt impossible. It felt like my entire life was on trial, not just this lawsuit. The court date arrived. I put on my best suit, straightened my tie 3 times in the mirror, and drove to the courthouse with David. My stomach was in knots. This was it. Everything I had worked for, my reputation, my peace of mind, all of it hung in the balance. Jessica was already there when we arrived, sitting with her attorney, a woman named Miss Thompson. Jessica looked the part of a victim perfectly. She wore a modest dress, minimal makeup, and had her hair pulled back simply. She looked sad and vulnerable. Miss Thompson looked sharp and aggressive, exactly the kind of lawyer you would hire if you wanted to intimidate someone. The judge, a middle-aged woman named Judge Martinez, entered the courtroom. She had a reputation for being fair, but no nonsense. Everyone stood as she took her seat, and then the proceedings began. Miss Thompson gave the opening statement for Jessica. She painted a picture of a vulnerable woman who had trusted the wrong man. According to her, I was a manipulator who had promised Jessica the world, convinced her to depend on me financially, and then abandoned her when it was no longer convenient. She described Jessica as someone who had sacrificed her own financial stability for the relationship, only to be left with nothing. She claimed I had borrowed money from Jessica and refused to pay it back, leaving her in debt. She presented Jessica as the perfect victim, trusting, loving, and ultimately destroyed by my callousness. Then it was David's turn. He stood calmly and addressed the judge directly. "Your Honor, the evidence will show that the plaintiff is fabricating these claims in an attempt to extort money from my client. Mr. Paul Harrison did not defraud, abuse, or borrow money from Miss Jessica Turner. In fact, the evidence will show the opposite. Miss Turner financially exploited Mr. Harrison throughout their relationship and is now retaliating against him for ending that relationship. We will present clear, documented proof of these facts. Judge Martinez nodded and instructed Miss Thompson to call her first witness. Jessica took the stand. She was a good actress, I will give her that. She spoke softly, her voice breaking at times. She described our relationship as a fairy tale that turned into a nightmare. She claimed I had promised to take care of her to support her while she pursued her career goals. She said I had convinced her to trust me completely to let me handle finances, and then I had pulled the rug out from under her. She cried as she talked about the emotional abuse, the way I allegedly controlled her life and made her feel worthless. She claimed I had borrowed $5,000 from her over the course of our relationship and never paid her back. Miss Thompson presented the diary entries and therapy receipts to the judge. I sat there watching, feeling sick. If I had not had the evidence David and I had compiled, I might have lost everything based on her performance alone. Then it was David's turn to cross-examine her. He stood and approached the witness stand calmly. Miss Turner, you claim Mr. Harrison borrowed money from you. Do you have any proof of these loans, text messages, emails, bank transfers? Jessica hesitated. I had text messages, but I accidentally deleted them when I got a new phone. How convenient. So you have no proof of these alleged loans? No, but that does not mean they did not happen. David nodded. You also testified that Mr. Harrison convinced you to quit your job and depend on him financially. Is that correct? Yes. Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit A. David handed documents to the judge and to Miss Thompson. These are employment records from Miss Turner's employer showing she was employed full-time throughout the entire duration of her relationship with Mr. Harrison. She never quit her job. Jessica's face went pale. I meant that he made me feel like I could not focus on my career. That is not what you testified to, Miss Turner. You said, and I quote, that he convinced you to quit your job. Which is it? She stammered, unable to give a clear answer. David continued. You also submitted therapy receipts as evidence of the emotional damage Mr. Harrison allegedly caused. Your Honor, I would like to present Exhibit B. He handed more documents to the judge. These receipts are dated 6 months before Miss Turner ever met Mr. Harrison. Can you explain that Miss Turner? Jessica looked at Miss Thompson desperately. That must be a mistake. Those are the wrong receipts. So you are saying you submitted false evidence to this court? No, I mean, I must have mixed up the dates. Judge Martinez was now leaning forward, her expression skeptical. David pressed on. One more question, Miss Turner. After your breakup with Mr. Harrison, did you send him a threatening text message? I was upset. People say things when they are upset. Did you, or did you not tell him, and I quote, you will regret this. I will make sure you pay for everything you have done to me. Jessica looked down. I do not remember exactly what I said. Your Honor, I have the text message right here if Miss Turner needs her memory refreshed. Judge Martinez nodded. I think we have heard enough. You may step down, Miss Turner. It was my turn to testify. I felt nervous but also relieved. Finally, I could tell the truth. David guided me through the timeline of our relationship. I explained how things started well but gradually became controlling and financially abusive on Jessica's part. I described how she had asked to borrow money repeatedly, how she had contributed almost nothing to our shared expenses, and how she had threatened me after the breakup. David then presented our evidence. Bank statements showing I had paid 90% of our shared expenses. Text messages showing Jessica asking to borrow money with no mention of repayment. The lease agreement proving I was the primary payer. The threatening text messages she sent after we broke up. Emails from our landlord confirming the payment history. He also presented the inconsistencies in Jessica's diary entries. Timestamps that did not match reality. Claims of abuse on dates when I was provably out of town. The therapy receipts dated before we even met. Miss Thompson tried to object several times, claiming the evidence was irrelevant or prejudicial, but Judge Martinez allowed it all. Then David called our witnesses. Marcus took the stand first. He testified that he had watched Jessica manipulate me throughout the relationship. He described times when Jessica had asked me for money in front of him, always with some urgent excuse. He testified that he and other friends had tried to warn me that she was using me. Our old landlord testified via phone. He confirmed that I had paid the vast majority of the rent and that Jessica had frequently been late with her portion, forcing me to cover the difference. Then Lauren, Jessica's former co-worker, took the stand. She testified that Jessica had once told her about a plan to get money from me if we ever broke up. She said Jessica had joked about how easy it would be to make me look bad and force a settlement. Miss Thompson objected vigorously, but Judge Martinez allowed the testimony. By the time all the evidence and testimony were presented, Jessica looked like she wanted to disappear. Miss Thompson tried to salvage things in her closing argument, claiming that even if some details were unclear, Jessica had still been hurt by the relationship and deserved compensation. It was a weak argument, and everyone in the courtroom could feel it. David's closing argument was simple. Your Honor, this case is about accountability. Miss Turner financially exploited my client, and when he ended the relationship, she retaliated by filing a fraudulent lawsuit. The evidence is overwhelming. We ask that you dismiss her claims and hold her accountable for wasting this court's time. Judge Martinez did not need long to deliberate. She called for a short recess, then returned to the bench. After reviewing all the evidence and testimony presented, it is clear to this court that the plaintiff's claims are not only unfounded but fraudulent. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that Mr. Harrison was the victim of financial exploitation during this relationship, not the perpetrator. Miss Turner's claims of emotional abuse are contradicted by her own falsified evidence. Her claims of unpaid loans are unsupported by any credible documentation. Furthermore, her submission of therapy receipts dated before the relationship even began constitutes an attempt to defraud this court. Judge Martinez looked directly at Jessica. Miss Turner, I am dismissing your lawsuit in its entirety. Furthermore, I am ordering you to pay Mr. Harrison's legal fees, which total $8,000. I am also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential perjury charges. You are fortunate that Mr. Harrison is not countersuing you for defamation and malicious prosecution, though he would be well within his rights to do so. This case is dismissed. The gavel came down. It was over. Jessica sat frozen in her seat, her face pale. Miss Thompson gathered her things quickly, clearly wanting to get out of there. I felt like a weight I had been carrying for months had suddenly been lifted. David shook my hand. Justice served. Outside the courtroom, Marcus was waiting. He hugged me and said, I am proud of you, man. You stood up for yourself. Other friends who had come to support me congratulated me. I felt lighter than I had in months. Jessica left, quickly avoiding eye contact with everyone. I did not feel triumphant or vengeful. I just felt relieved. It was finally over. Within days, word of the verdict spread through our social circle. People who had distanced themselves from me during the lawsuit reached out to apologize. They said they had not known what to believe at first, but were glad the truth had come out. I appreciated their apologies, though I also realized who my real friends were during the hardest times. I posted a simple message on social media. Truth prevailed. Thank you to everyone who stood by me. I did not mention Jessica by name. I did not need to. Everyone already knew. In the weeks that followed, I heard through mutual acquaintances what had happened to Jessica. Her company had fired her. The lawsuit and the fraud findings had made her a liability. She could not afford to stay in her apartment and had to move back in with her parents. The friends we had shared cut ties with her. She deleted all her social media accounts and essentially disappeared from our social circles. I did not take any pleasure in her downfall. I just felt glad it was over and that the truth had won. As for me, I took time to heal. I threw myself into my work and earned a promotion to senior developer. I reconnected with friends and family. I started dating again, but more carefully this time. I paid attention to red flags I had ignored before. I set boundaries and stuck to them. I learned that protecting yourself is not selfish. It is necessary. The biggest lesson I learned from all of this is simple: never let anyone manipulate you with guilt or false promises. Keep records. Trust your instincts, and know that the truth, when backed by evidence, is the most powerful weapon you have. Jessica tried to destroy me with lies. Instead, she destroyed herself. And sometimes justice really is as simple as letting the truth speak for itself. If you have ever dealt with a manipulative relationship or someone who tried to turn the tables on you, drop a comment below and share your experience. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself in court or in a difficult situation? I would love to hear your stories. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and remember to always stand firm in your truth. Wishing you all strength and clarity in whatever challenges you face. Take care.